Hi, my name is Dan Roos. I'm with Openly Disruptive. I work with hundreds of innovators and entrepreneurs, founders, on their startups and their entrepreneurship ideas. And what I want to share with you is what I call the Vagueness to Vision worksheet, which I use to help people get a handle on what they're doing and really start acting on it. So it boils down to a really simple idea that the human brain can hold on to 7 ideas. And so rather than us being right and inundating people with all kinds of information, what we actually need to do is we need to actually give them something that they remember, because the odds are good that when we talk to them, they're not ready to help us, but that they might help us at some point in the future. So we want them to remember us. So this is 7 ideas. This allows us to keep it under 7 ideas. We want them to remember our name and where they met us. And then we give them a very simple story about what we're doing that becomes very memorable. So I actually developed this over time. I do these on TerraPad, so I can sit with somebody in a coffee shop and actually do it. The instructions are here over to the side, and it's a very simple mind map, very friendly to do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through an example from a company that everybody knows, so that you can see how it works and see what it does. And then I'm going to show you how you can use it yourself. So the first thing is it's got these 5 nodes on it. And the form of this is, up top is where we're creating new economic value, what we're going to do that's unique, that's differentiating, and that we can protect, or that we can do better than other people, so that you've got some kind of moat to protect you. And that's down here. And then what is the big win that's going to happen for everybody when you succeed? All right. So you all, whoever you are, you have a vague idea of what you're doing, but you probably don't know specifically what it is. And what you need to be doing early on is you need to be having a lot of conversations with people to improve that, because you're really trying to figure out your product market fit. So the way we do that is, up in the top, it says, who are the 2 people or groups you can best help, up here. So let's imagine if you're Howard Schultz, younger Howard Schultz, when he was starting Starbucks with his first store in Seattle's Pike Place Market. And he might say, well, it's for men and women, or it's for adults and children, or he might say it's for coffee drinkers and tea drinkers, or might say all kinds of things. But this would allow us to really explore where he's creating new value. And he might say it's actually for the coffee drinking mass market. So this is not for coffee snobs, of which there's a few. This is for people that like coffee and that there's a lot of. And then he might say, but what I'm really going to do is, I think this thing can scale. I think it can go beyond one store. So it's for them, and it's going to be my investors. I'm going to create value because the investors are going to put in the cash to support these stores for the coffee drinking mass market. And then I might ask him question 2. What are the 2 unique things that you're going to bring? And these should be protectable, and they should be attainable. So it shouldn't be, well, I'm going to have a perpetual motion machine, and I'm going to have this rare coffee that nobody else can have, or whatever. So he might say, well, I'm going to have coffee in cups. And I would say, oh, really? Are you aware of a coffee shop that doesn't have that? Or he might say, well, we're going to have drinks and we're going to have pastries. And like, once again, is that really unique? And he might finally say, well, you know what we're going to have is we're going to be in Pike Place Market, which is a pretty cool place, but that we can create that kind of environment everywhere we go. So actually, we're going to be about a 3rd place. Whoops. You want to be. Well, that's kind of intriguing. And, the 3rd place plays on this idea of, people want to be someplace other than home or their workplace. It's a 3rd place, and it's a community place. And that was very popular, especially when they got started. And then he might say, well, we're going to have music in the stores. We're going to have we're going to have different kinds of drinks. And I'm like, yeah, but most coffee shops have music, and all coffee shops have different drinks. What's really unique that's going to make this value jump to life? He's like, oh, well, It's really going to be about a consistent coffee experience wherever you go. I'll be like, oh, interesting. Tell me about that. He's like, well, we have this water process that makes the water, that water is what makes coffee taste different from one place to another. And we have this way to roast our beans. So it always is going to taste the same. So whatever, when we have 100 stores, you're going to get a drink that tastes the same at that 100th store as it does at our first store and everywhere in between. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I said, so what's the big win when this happens? You might say, well, Howard's going to be rich, or he's going to hire 50 people and give them meaningful jobs, or, whatever that is. And I might say, yeah, but that's, how does that actually help both of these people and everybody else? He's like, oh, well, okay. So really what we're going to have is we're going to create, when we do this, we're going to create the first global coffee brand. Like, that's kind of interesting. Coffee shop brand. I'm like, that's really interesting. Okay. And then I stop there and I say, now, I want to pull all this together to make sure I understand this. And this is just a Mad Lib. So I don't know if you remember doing those as a kid, but now we can just copy these things over. So we say, for the coffee drinking mass market and Howard's investors, we're going to bring this third place you want to be and this consistent coffee experience wherever you go to create the first global coffee brand. And so what we've done is we've now taken all of these ideas in his head and we've actually put them in just one sentence. So if you can imagine that when he gets, on that elevator pitch to talk to that first investor, when he, meets that person, he can say, hey, here's what we're doing. And he knows, we're bringing together the coffee drinking mass market and our investors to get this, create this third place you want to be in a coffee, consistent coffee experience wherever you go to create the first global coffee brand. And then he can say to those people, because what he really needs to do is, would you take a meeting with me? Or would you be an advisor? Would you be our first architect? Would you be our first store manager? Would you be our first barista? What would make you come to our store or whatever? So he wants to have all of those conversations. And now he can actually ask people something. So when he's got something concise to ask them, he can say, would you give me an hour of your time if I'm bringing the coffee drinking mass market and investors together with this third place you want to be, a consistent coffee experience wherever you go to create the first global coffee brand. And this becomes really compelling because, number one, he suddenly has this aha moment where he's like, yeah, that's what I'm really doing. And that's really powerful. And he can start talking to people and actually figure out the holes that has in it. And he can also start looking at it to say what he can really build on. So when people say, tell me more about this third place, and he can say, well, coffee houses are the place that people used to hang out in, and we want to make that be the place that people want to be. So it's a destination. Or whatever it is, but he'll be able to have that conversation. The other thing it lets me do, as somebody that wants to support him, is these are on these tear pads, and now I know enough about what he's doing to say, hey, Howard, that's really interesting. I can support you maybe with some other ideas. And maybe what we need to do is we need to really look in, I think you ought to really, maybe it's not for the coffee drinking mass market. Maybe there's another way to describe it. Or maybe it's not about investors initially and maybe somebody else, but you're creating new values. So maybe we need to address that. Or maybe it's like, we really need to understand what motivates those people. So we need to do some empathy mapping for them, or to really lay out what is this consistent coffee experience wherever you go. Is it about just the water and the roasting, or is there more to it than that? And how do you really develop that? And maybe you need to work with some people on product development and experience development to figure that out. You want to figure out how you're going to get from one store to 100 stores. And these are all actually exercises that I have on other tear pads that I can do with people later. So exercise number 2 about you don't know it all yet, or number 4, and number 5, which are all about trading up to better problems. Getting from a small movement to a much bigger movement, or figuring out how long you can sustain this before to figure out how many pivots can you sustain if you need to do it. And then it might let me say, so what I hear from you, Howard, is really you've got a lot of this figured out, but you need to figure out how you're going to get from one store to 100 stores. And so then I'm able to tell them, so if you want to talk to me, and I can give them my email address here, or I can give them my phone number or whatever, but then I hand it to them and I say, good luck with this, Howard. I really look forward to hearing what you do with this. And it allows me to be of service to him. It allows us to get to the root of the matter much quicker, and allows him to really start actually talking to people in the outside world, rather than sitting someplace in a co-working space with his friends trying to figure out what they're going to do next. So that's the methodology I use. If you would like to use it, feel free to email me at dan@openlydisruptive.com, and I'll be happy to share it with you. And if you'd like, have a session with you. But you can fill this out yourself. So think about what you would do. Where are you creating new value? How are you going to do that in a defensible way? And what's the big win for everybody in that? And then start asking people to support you on that and get some skin in the game. Thanks. I hope you have a great time disrupting the world and innovating in your own way. And I look forward to hearing from you.